Hi, everyone. Like Mario said, I'm Pushpa. I'm from JLL, which is one of those top 3 commercial real estate providers that people have mentioned a few times today. It's an established fact that technology is changing the way that we personally work every single day, not just sort of the philosophy of technology changing what we do. So today, as our final panel, we want to take a deeper dive at a couple of the technologies that focus on big data and analytics and how that's causing a paradigm shift in how we buy, sell, and finance assets in the world today. I'd like to introduce our panelists. We have Richard, who's the CEO of Reonomy, Carol, who, unlike our other panelists, brings a different perspective where our panelists, 3 of our 4 panelists are part of the startup companies and their CEOs. Carol is actually the Chief Procurement and Real Estate Officer for BNY Mellon. And so she's much more of a user as opposed to a provider. Next, we have Nick, who's the CEO of VTS, and then Kevin, the CEO of RealLiquidity. So I'd like to start with our opening question of, in good times, people don't question too many things because deals are happening, things are happening. There's no need to really dig into inefficiencies or how can we do things better, like we can in downtimes when everybody's scrutinizing your every move. What makes now as a good time, the right time to still be investing money in technology? I'll open that up to any of you.
Sure, I guess I can start. I guess it's a little different now that you're here. I can not usually wing it and shoot from the hip and say whatever I want because you could actually potentially buy our software. So I'll try to sound a little smarter than usual. But I think it's the right question, right? Because when the sun's out, everyone wants to make more hay, and it's you know, let the good times roll, so to speak. But what we've found with our client base, and as we have more conversations, and I'm sure this is the case with you guys at BNY Mellon, is you can essentially try to make more money in one of 2 ways. You can either try to generate more business, lend more, transact more, and do so more securely. And you might even be willing to spend more money to make more money, especially, again, when the good times are rolling. But in a downturn or in tougher environments, that's where you have to tighten the belt a little bit, and inefficiencies are usually managed out either via procurement or whatever it is. So there it does become about spending less money to try and make the same, or knowing that there's going to be less deal flow. But for us, whether it's a bull market, bear market, what we're seeing is that essentially it goes down to just trying to make as much money as possible, trying to make your business as profitable to flow through the bottom line. And technology as an enablement tool basically either plays that top of the line factor or bottom of the line in terms of taking out cost.
Yeah, so, my mic on? Can you guys hear me? Okay. So from a client perspective and from a big corporate perspective, at BNY Mellon, it's all really about being agile and being able to make smart decisions in a very quick manner. So if we're not investing in technology, we're not keeping up, and the sheer amount of data that's coming into us because of all the great technology, the digitization of everything, if we don't have the right technology to interpret and act on that data, we're going to be left behind. So in good times and in bad times, it's as important for us to continue to invest and make sure we have the right technologies in place to serve our clients.
Yeah, I agree with my other panelists as well. I think the thing that we're seeing most frequently now is that people are realizing whether the market's good or bad, things can turn pretty quickly. And a lot of that's just market specific. And I can give you a real world example. JP Morgan is a big VTS customer. They manage all their leasing and deal activity in our system. And they have a lot of assets in Houston. And when oil prices dropped, that's a high energy market, that affects that market overnight. So after a few months of oil prices dropping, they asked their brokers, you know, what do you guys think is happening with respect to the market? Do we feel like is this having a major impact on leasing? And you know, the brokers said, no, we feel like it's still pretty strong. And they went into VTS and looked at the data and said, well, our tour activity in every one of our buildings over the past 3 months is down 85%. Every single proposal that we've received is down 33% from the previous quarter. So this is a market that was doing great. And then literally in about a week dropped off a cliff and it hasn't really recovered. So I think that companies are realizing now that, well, yes, when the market's a little bit tougher, you want to measure performance so you can improve it. But at the same time, you don't know when these swings are going to happen a lot of the time. So it doesn't matter whether it's good or bad. You still need the platforms.
I agree with everybody. Everybody, great points. You know, if I go back to when I started in commercial real estate and commercial real estate tech 15 plus years ago, and we had a conference like this, there'd be 7 people. These conferences didn't exist 15 years ago. And so we're at a point now in commercial real estate where it is disruptable. Typically, commercial real estate is the last of sort of the big pillars to adapt, but we're seeing it now. And I think, you know, to your question, if you don't adapt, you're going to be left behind. And so, you know, the efficiencies of the technology that's out there, look at it, it's fantastic. I mean, this has just not been around before. And access to data mobily has not been available before. And so I think, you know, it's becoming prolific, and I think that in order to, you know, go to the next level, you're going to have to adapt.
I'll just add one thing. I think technology for technology's sake, though, it doesn't matter if it's good times, bad times, that's not going to work. Whatever the solution is has to be solving a problem, real pain, whether it's solving inefficiencies or something. And, you know, to me, it's less about what the macroeconomic headwinds look like and more about, is this a real solution for a real problem that is meeting an unmet need for a BNY Mellon, a JP Morgan Chase, a Tishman Speyer? It doesn't matter. To me, that's the real crux of the issue.
It's like you knew what next question was coming. So if we all agree that investment in technology is important, where should people be investing? In other words, what are the hot spots that are really affecting real estate professionals today? And I'll throw a wrench in here and just say that for our 3 CEOs, you can't say your own thing. So let's talk about where should people be investing? Where's the right place? What are those hard spots?
You say mine and I'll say yours.
Deal.
VTS for sure.
Well, since I'm the client, I'll start. There's so many, right? I mean, with the sheer amount of data that's coming at us, it's really being able to make that data actionable. But what I really struggle with from a big corporate is, how is my space being utilized? Real time, who's doing what in my space? I mean, I want to know how my space is being used. Okay, well, I got to go and get badge swipe data. And then I have to have somebody interpret it. And then I have to have somebody do some analytics behind it. And then I have to, you know, reiterate it, and then I have to make it usable for the client that I'm trying to talk to about their utilization rate and how they're utilizing their space. So to me, that I really struggle with that, and how can I really get real crisp, real-time data that I can take out to my clients in the business and go, here's how you're using your space, here's how we can make it more efficient and effective. And you know, the really, did you know? They don't know. They have no idea how many people are coming into the office on a given day. My office is sitting empty right now while I'm here. It's completely unutilized space. Just because I swiped out of the building, nobody knows where I am, right? Which is kind of a good thing. But you know, so how is that space being utilized while I'm gone? It's not. It's completely wasted space. So I'd really like some kind of technology, real time. You know, I like the Waze idea that I heard earlier in the day, but that's more of a complaint mechanism in my mind, rather than how can I utilize my space better and more efficiently. So that's my challenge to you.
I don't know the answer to that one. Okay. I mean, I'm a data junkie, so I think for anyone who's in this market, you're going to see data become more transparent in a lot of ways. I think any company that's doing that is something you should look at, because if someone does have access to it and you don't, you're at an immediate disadvantage. I think Reonomy, it truly is a great platform. ComStack is another great platform. There's a lot of these companies that are, some are new, some are old, but I mean, log in, I'm sure they'll all give you some kind of beta access or free access or trial, and it's worth just seeing, because I think you'll be astonished at the value you immediately get from it. So I think data is everything, and more importantly now in real estate, it's actually becoming a real initiative versus like a nice to have.
And you know, I think with this asset class specifically, I've been a tech entrepreneur for over 15 years, so I've started companies in many different asset classes. This is my first time in commercial real estate, so you know, unlike Nick, I wasn't a broker. I don't have any CRE experience, or I didn't when I started Reonomy. Arguably, I still don't. But what I've found is that in this asset class, even more so than in others, technology has to be an enablement tool, right? It has to be a complement to the local knowledge that a broker has in his or her mind and help them do their job more effectively and free up their time to either analyze data and optimize their assets, or meet more people and work their Rolodex effectively and build relationships, and take less time or no time at all doing the grunt work, frankly, that computers and machines can do far more effectively. And in that way, it's not an either or, it's really an enablement tool. Let the technology do what you shouldn't be doing so that you can focus on what you're great at.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and just to sort of dovetail to what Nick was saying, you know, data in our business in financial technology is sort of paramount, and I know this is probably going to go to the next question, so I'll maybe answer that now.
You guys don't even need me.
No, we don't. No, of course we do.
Not about
self-moderating.
Yes, we couldn't do this without you. So, you know, obviously we're seeing sort of a paradigm shift on the financial technology side. We're seeing sort of a major shift in things like crowdfunding. We happen to be in that space, but we're not going to say our company. So I think that there's just many different aspects of fintech that is investable. You know, from crowdfunding to the way that we're structuring debt and equity and new deals, and providing sort of a shift in how the community can invest in real estate. They've never had access to this asset class the way we do now. So we're seeing just sort of average citizens now have the ability to get into a deal that, you know, it could be a multifamily deal in New York that's pushing out a 7% coupon. And normally they didn't have the capital and the access to those kinds of deals, and now they're just more available. So I think we're seeing a major shift in fintech and commercial real estate.
What are some other examples, very specifically, of how access to data and analytics are helping people make better decisions today? I mean, again, we all know that having expertise in our industry helps you make those gut-based decisions, right? But now having access to data, analytics, and dashboards and everything else on your phone allows almost anyone to step in and be able to be an expert, right? So what are some specific ways that that's happening?
Yeah, so I think I'll start it at a high level and then I'll drill down and give you a specific example. I think generally it's not enough just to collect the data and even analyze it and then just present it. You have to really stitch it together to get to insight. I think that's what you were talking about, right? You need the insight into how is the space being utilized and not utilized. If I just gave you all the badge data, it still is not enough. You have to layer on top of it. And so the other side of the coin is, even with the insight, you have to give it in a way that's digestible, so that it's easy to understand, interpretable, if that's a word. And so specifically for us, one thing that we found in New York is things like the owner of a building, right? You can go in and look at job filings or permits, or even, you know, heck, you can go to the lobby and see who owns a building and all that stuff. But to be able to systematically cull all that information across multiple sources and then stitch together all the relationship trees across all the LLCs and say, okay, here are the individual principals, here's what else they own, here's what they've owned over time, that's the level of insight that folks are looking for as a specific example. But you can only get that via technology, because you literally need all that data, and you need to be doing that in real time so that the information doesn't go stale. So it's taking the data, but then analyzing it and presenting it in a way that actually leads to insight. That's what we found really resonates with our clients.
Yeah, I think just to echo that, I think it is a little bit of art and science, right? We can do the science part. I think the art part is up to you guys. And so we ask our clients this all the time, like, give me the ROI on at least what you think the ROI is after using it for a year or for 6 months. I would check, if you check our Twitter handle, we put out a video yesterday. We asked Jonathan Gray, who's the head of Blackstone, which I'm sure you guys all know. We asked him, how do you use VTS? And you never know what they're going to say. Obviously, he runs a very big company. And he gave this story, which is in the video. He says, well, we own the Willis Tower. It's the largest building in North America. We put VTS in place. After about 6 months, we noticed a very specific kind of tenant coming through the building, giving us offers in a certain price range. We saw a building about a mile away go on the market, 1.7 million square feet, that had the same kind of building profile as the Willis Tower. So we knew the tenant base would be similar. We used our VTS data to buy that building. I'd never thought about using our data to buy another building before. It was always about leasing and asset management. So you've got arguably the world's greatest investor who blew me away. I actually didn't even know if he'd ever logged in saying, no, this is how I use the information. So I think the art part is totally up to you guys, right? We can make the workflow better. We can provide the data. But the art is up to you guys, and that's your brilliance, right? It's the end user and what you do with it. So I think that's always probably going to be the case. No one wants to have their, we're not trying to replace anyone's jobs. So it's up to you guys.
So I quite often feel like I'm way overloaded with everything coming at me, and I don't even want to look at any more electronics at a certain point in the day, and a lot of times on the weekend. Carol, I'll start with you. Are there times when you feel like too much information is coming your way and it actually hinders you from being able to make a decision, almost like analysis paralysis or that kind of thing?
I think, yeah, constantly. I mean, there's so much data coming at us all the time, but it goes back to my earlier point. I need that machine learning or those algorithms behind the data that can truly make it actionable. I mean, I want the data, but I don't want to have to interpret it. I want to be able to action on it. I want to be able to take it out to my business partners and be that trusted advisor, know enough about what's going on in the portfolio and the data and their business. I need the data, but I really needed something behind the scenes to make it actionable and really crisp, but tailored also to the different businesses. I mean, BNY Mellon, we manage and service assets, and I've got lots of different business. I've got lots of different clients. We've got technology, HR, marketing, all the back office functions, and they all have different needs and want to see their data a little bit differently. I don't have time to customize the look and feel, so I want something that can do it, like that Tableau feel and that Tableau look, or the platform, or whatever platform you're on, to really be able for me to go in and go, hey, look, this is how we're using our portfolio. If we did this or we tweak that, or did you know if we just modified this a little bit, the true impact to the bottom line? That kind of conversation can't happen without the data, right. But I want to spend my time having the conversation, not manipulating the data.
So following up on that, in what ways has data helped you and changed in terms of how you can make certain decisions? Are there specific examples you have where it hasn't, taken you hours?
Have? I mean, yeah, I'm going to run out. I mean, I use it all the time. I mean, the most public example I can use is we sold our headquarter building at 1 Wall Street. Very iconic building, gorgeous Art Deco. I mean, everybody knows 1 Wall. To get the company to move, we needed a lot of data. I mean, we needed financials, we needed information on the properties that were available. We looked across the city, we looked across the river. I needed a ton of data to really tell the people the value proposition behind the pain of moving a corporate headquarter, what it was going to be, what we were going to come out. We were going to be more efficient, our workplace was going to be better, it's going to be more collaborative, our employees are going to be happier, the space is going to be better, the technology is going to be phenomenal, all that great stuff. I mean, I can say it and I know it, but I had to prove it with the data.
Did it take you hours and hours and months, or did you have a way of actually doing that?
Yeah, it was a long process, but I have to tell you, when I look back at this, once we made the decision, the speed of execution was absolutely phenomenal. And the person who ran it for me is in the audience today, and I know he lived and breathed in blood, sweat, and tears this thing, but way on time, way under budget, absolutely phenomenal. Everybody loves the space, so huge success story.
Congratulations. Kevin, let's switch over to you. Why is transparency of data so important for secondary markets and crowdfunding portals?
Well, data in our business is really the cornerstone of what we do. When you deal in securities and doing these kinds of transactions, we have to have transparency. We have to be able to, when we design what we do, we have to do it in such a fashion that somebody who is not an expert in real estate can understand what they're looking at. So if you take somebody that wants to take put an investment into a syndicated asset, we need to be able to provide them a dashboard of information with regards to the property, the management team, the history of the property, market statistics, trajectory of where the markets are going. So somebody taking a look at an investment needs to be able to go through the data and decide, is this the right investment for me? So it's really the cornerstone of what we provide, and we have to be very sure of the quality of the data that we're bringing in, because people look at it as I'm not going to say advice, but they look at it as sort of a tool, so they can make that decision.
And it sounds like it lets people who couldn't even play before now be major players in a market or a field.
Right. I mean, it's been commercial real estate is a very sort of specialized sector, and you're seeing a group of people that, would like to be involved on the investment side, and they need these tools. Most of the people in this room can look at a spreadsheet and figure out cap rates, and they know how to look at real estate. The average guy, a doctor, a dentist, an engineer, he's coming in and he's looking at this and going, what's a cap rate? Right? I mean, he's starting at the bottom level. So we need to educate and provide that data for investors, which is only going to help the industry. You're just going to have that many more players in the industry participating.
I think the problem, actually, which is kind of funny, it's not just the smaller guys who are entering the market, right? It's the big guys. This thing, can you guys hear it? Who've been in the market for 25 years, who haven't had any data, right? I mean, and the institutional capital coming into the market, I think, is probably driving this technology initiative more than anyone, because you've got companies who are coming in, who are buying other alternative assets, who have data on everything, and it's real time, right? I've got a Bloomberg dashboard for this, but when I go to buy a $500 million asset, I have nothing. Someone gives me a Yardi export that's like, here's the history of the building for the past 35 years. Turn to page 477, it's like, are you kidding me? No, they're a great company, it's a bad example, but point being, these guys want real-time data, and it's not that they want it, it's expected. So I think the days of the spreadsheet, I mean, we're always going to have spreadsheets, it's how we look at information a lot of times, but that's not going to be our single source or our main source of looking at data. Those days are just, they're dead.
And VTS in particular has taken us out of spreadsheets and having to know where things are and what's going on. So what are a couple of examples of how having that kind of on-demand information, particularly through apps, has changed the way that either investors or your clients, just having access to that data, what does that help them do more?
I think it is a lot of things. I think the John Gray example is a really good one. It's a unique one. I think the more day-to-day difference it's not just about hearing about the good things, right? The updates. I think it is about understanding potential exposure, right? And like where VTS will tell you when there's a notice date that's coming up that sometimes is normally like kept in a lease abstract that no one knew about. Those are the little things, but I think the most important thing that I hear it does is actually improves the relationship between a broker and an owner, right? So every day we've got one client who, he takes the train to work, he gets his daily digest from VTS that says, across your 65 buildings, here are the new things that happened yesterday, right? So it's like his to-do list. Yeah. On his train, an hour in the morning, he goes through it, he calls each broker, hey, what happened with this? And the brokers tell us, this is amazing. While you would think the transparency would piss us off, my relationship with that guy is probably 10x better than it was last year. So I think what technology does is it improves relationships, it doesn't disrupt them, and that's been this kind of stigma that it's had, and it's just not true.
Yeah, and I think that's a great example of the enablement, right? You're not replacing, you're allowing them to focus on what they should be doing, which is build that strong relationship so that then when they need more representation or whatever, who are you going to go to? The person you have that trusted relationship with.
So, Richard, what aspect of real estate do you think is advancing the most as a result of information being so readily available?
I'll answer it, but I'll answer it in a way that's kind of answering another question that I just wanted to build on. Because I think what I've heard a lot today, but also in other conferences and panels around CRE tech, the word tech is used a lot, DisruptCRE, et cetera. And really, tech is not enough, or the technology, the algorithms, all that, that's not enough. What we do, the three of us who are running these businesses build products. And products need the technology, the fancy way of crunching the data. But to your point, we need to be able to deliver beautiful, simple, elegant, intuitive products, because that's what folks expect in every other area of their life, right? My iPhone is so simple. My 1.5-year-old son literally knows how to use it. It kind of freaks me out, but he knows how to use it. But it's way more powerful than the first laptop that I ever had. It's a supercomputer compared to that, right? So from a technology point of view, to me, that's in a sense the table stakes. What's going to start differentiating, I think, is which companies are able to look at the other side of that coin, which is the user experience, user design, user journeys, and figuring out how can I build the right product to deliver that huge heavyweight insight that technology can bring to bear without overwhelming the end user.
I think the crazy thing is, I mean, at this point for us, for the guys who are building products, and there's a term for it, it will come to me later, but there's a name for what you guys expect, right? You expect us to build you products now that you don't need to be trained on. I mean, the iPhone is the best example. When you open an iPhone box, there's no user manual. You just you know what to do, right? So we have to build technology that way. It's really hard, right? I mean, with the amount of data and things we're trying to put in front of you guys, it's a really hard task, and we fight tooth and nail to get really good engineers and product people to do that. But that's the expectation.
And I couldn't agree more. I was just going to say the same thing. If I need instructions on how to do something, I'm probably not going to do it.
That's why I don't use IKEA.
Right. And I never want to see any of our clients put Reonomy on their resume like a badge of honor. Like, oh, they know how to use Reonomy because it's a skill. So, Kevin, by bringing a tool that has, by creating a tool that brings liquidity to commercial assets, what's the impact on the rest of the industry in your mind?
Well, I think it's significant. I think that when you take a look at what we're trying to do in the industry, I think it sort of speeds things up, and I think it puts a lot of pressure on other aspects of the business. As far as financing, I think what you're seeing is a shift on how people, gather money, raise money, put together funds to buy buildings. And I think you're seeing a big change in how that capital formation is happening. And so as we build these tech tools, and I'm not talking about the trading side of what we do, but just on the capital formation side, I think you're seeing significant impact in the industry, and I think you're starting to see major players changing the way they do business and involving the community more. I think you're seeing investors, both the individual and institutional side, starting to sit up and take a look and go, you know what, things are changing. And so I think you're seeing significant impact with the new technologies.
Carol, you've heard what these three guys do. There's a ton of technology companies out here today. What's something you still haven't seen that would help you?
I think we've talked a lot about it. It's about making it really intuitive and simple. I mean, I want to be able to look at a picture and understand exactly what's going on in my portfolio at any given point in time, right? So, I mean, what's that Uber experience for a real estate professional sitting in a large corporate? I don't have that kind of like push button, real easy, real simple. If somebody sends me a paragraph in an email, I'm not going to read it. If they send me a spreadsheet that's 500 lines long, forget it. I don't have time to sit there and try and interpret it. It's what before what I was saying is give me stuff that I can action on now, that's real time, that's simple for me to communicate. So if I have to sit down with an executive in the company and take an hour to explain what I'm trying to show him, forget it. They got 5 minutes, right? I've got 5 minutes of their time to really get to the key of the point. And if I don't have that kind of visual and data at my fingertips, where I can simply answer their questions. If they ask me a question, well, what happens if you change this number, you change this square footage, you increase your density? If I have to go back and rerun the numbers and come back with a spreadsheet, forget it, it's lost. I mean, that conversation's already gone and they're on to a million other things. If I can sit there and action right away and say, well, if we change this parameter or that parameter, this is what it means, this is the impact to the bottom line, then I'm really gotten that trusted advisor role that we really strive for. So that's what I'm really looking for.
You mentioned Tableau earlier. Are there other things, whether it's stuff like that for visualization or apps or other things that have helped you better optimize BNY Mellon's portfolio? Yeah,
and the Tableau experience, there's a lot of other products, so I'm not the a big proponent of Tableau. I mean, Platfora, Jaspersoft, there's a bunch of them out there that are really good, so I'm giving equal airtime. But it's really, is there an app for that? I don't have that real good mobile app where I can just walk around and understand everything that's going on in my portfolio yet. I know it's there. I mean, we've got bits and pieces like an app for, reservation systems and that kind of thing, but there's not like an executive app. Where's my dashboard on my app that I can go and talk to people about how we're utilizing our space and what our portfolio is doing, what's the exchange rate, what's the impact on our portfolio from the exchange rate, what's happening in geopolitical events that are going to disrupt my buildings. I don't have that experience.
So with that being said, in terms of what you need, we'll start with Richard, but what kinds of things do you see hitting the market that just new data products and tools? What do you see coming up?
Exactly what you just said. We're going to go build it together. No, jokes aside, I think there's also something around, we've been doing a lot of thinking and hearing a lot from our customers around, there's definitely a world of publicly available data and information to be collected, analyzed, and delivered in a useful way. But there's also a wealth of local and institutional knowledge in each and every one of your brains, right? And to some extent, it really is your bread and butter and what makes you valuable as a broker, or as a developer, or as a lender. What is that information, that local knowledge that you've developed over time? So we've been doing some thinking in terms of, and hearing it in the industry, of how do you tap into that and how do you actually bring that to life so that it's not just asymmetric information advantage, what do I know that you don't know, but much more so how do I tap into the collective knowledge about a submarket or even a block or a building or a street corner. There's some challenges to that because folks don't necessarily want, or they need to feel secure in that they're giving their data and it's not going to go all over the place, and that my local knowledge now, which is my barrier to entry in a sense, I'm giving it away. But there's ways to get around that with aggregating it and de-identifying it if it's give to get. But that's sort of something I see in the coming year or two, that there's going to be some movement around that.
Yeah, I mean, for us, our core has always been the kind of landlord-broker data/workflow piece. But the goal since day one has been to build this kind of ecosystem, right, for both sides, so for supply and demand. So we've been working for the past probably 9 months on our tenant rep/occupier product. So similar to how we built our investor/agency broker side, we've been working with the top brokers in the world, Bob Alexander at CBRE, Peter Regardi at JLL, and some of their clients to build out this piece. So we're launching probably in the next 30 days, but the goal is large occupiers like Bank of New York Mellon have the same issue a lot of big owners have, which is exactly what she said. What is happening in my portfolio? Right. At that point, you kind of are a landlord when you've got that many leases and that much square footage. So the problem's pretty similar. And we've been excited to tackle it for a long time. Half our team are former tenant rep brokers. So we knew enough to be dangerous. But once you get to the scale that she's on, it's a different level. So working with lots of really smart people. And also that's, I think, a new thing for a lot of the people in this market. I think people got burned pretty hard in the last .com boom.
Right.
Because you had people who didn't work in this space trying to build technology for you when they had no idea what you actually did every day. So that's a huge problem, and I don't think that is the same now. I think a lot of these players, outside of Richard here, came from the space, right? Although he probably at this point could be a broker. So I think that's been a big difference, and it's in our DNA, so we've used that to our advantage.
Any thoughts, Kevin?
Oh, sorry, I thought you were looking at Carol. I mean, I just find it fascinating. I've been in technology on the real estate side, and I see so many things happening. And so to listen to a user of technology, I just find fascinating. She's saying things that we talk about on our whiteboard, which is fantastic. It's, I wanted to say, hey, we're building that. But there's some things there. It's fantastic to see people utilizing the technology and what they need. And it's, again, I go back 10 years and nobody was talking about it. And it's we're solving problems now, big problems in this industry, and people are embracing the technology. And I think, and the users and how they engage with buildings, it's entirely different. And landlords are forced to sort of address some of these issues. to be competitive. You know, what can I offer my tenants that, you know, the building across the street is not offering? And so we're seeing these incredible technologies and just new ways of looking at things happen.
So I know we have a few more questions, but in the interest of us being between everybody else in the bar, let's sort of wrap up with a fun fact here and for each of you. What's your favorite mobile app?
Sure, I'll take that one. I'm sure everybody's expecting to talk about a workflow app or a productivity app. My favorite app as a parent of a 13-year-old is a product called Ting. And it allows me to control how much usage they have, how much data they have, and when they don't do their homework, I can turn it off. It's one of my favorite apps. Plus, I can torture him if I like. He's looking down, he can't figure out why it's not working.
So Dad is Big Brother.
I have an app that's called Whip, so it actually can make a whip. So whenever someone in my office does something terrible, they get whipped. And it makes the Indiana Jones noise, so that's my favorite app.
Okay, well, I have no whips, and my children are grown, so my favorite app is my Nike running app because it keeps me motivated, and I can track all of my stats, and it rewards you with little medals and different colors, and you know, so that's my favorite app.
I wish I had that Whip app. I think we can get it.
It's a game changer, Richard.
Yeah, it seems that way. I use Slack a lot, and I know there's been a lot of press. I mean, and it's a fascinating story because we used to use a product called HipChat, which was a very good product, and then for whatever reason, folks organically started using Slack. It really is a crazy story.
Every company I know, we were at HipChat too, is completely integrated Slack.
And they have no sales
like
team, right? It happened organically. And what really was one of the big inflection points or tipping points was the integration they had with all these other fun little things like Giphy, for instance. And so everyone in our office is sort of addicted in all the Slack channels to say who can put the funniest GIF, you know, these animated images to like show how they're feeling and stuff like that. So I get a kick out of little notifications that come when I'm, you know, on the road or something from. And I see Mike over there laughing because he's kind of a Giphy expert in our Slack channel. But that's one that I use a lot.
Well, I guess everyone's downloading the apps that you just mentioned. So thank you for that. And thank you for all your thoughts. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.